Group of women philanthropists that might be receptive to this idea of a different way of giving, and really expanding on women's philanthropy, leveraging different ideas about how that could happen.
And Gina and I and Linda hung it together, and we heard this great presentation and got really excited. It just sounded great. I had never heard of circles, so it was really interesting.
And hatched up the idea that that it would be nice to create some sort of instrument in Columbia, Howard County that would focus on philanthropy among women. And before we reached home, we had added the concept that it would be women's philanthropy targeted toward the needs of women and girls, women and children. And that was the genesis.
Okay, sorry, we had a little bit of technical issues there, but hello, everyone. Welcome to the WGC annual celebration on our 20th anniversary year. I am Barb Van Winkle, Chair of the WGC Advisory Board. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this evening. We filmed that terrific video on our 10th anniversary, and 10 years later, it's still fabulous to hear from some of our founders about the beginnings of WGC 20 years ago. I would like to wish you all a happy Women's History Month and happy International Women's Day. This year, International Women's Day theme is Breaking the Bias, and it's about working towards a world free of stereotype and discrimination that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, something that is a very deep focus of ours. WGC has made a huge difference in my life. I was extremely fortunate to attend the first meeting in February 2002, and I am now deeply honored to be the chair of the advisory board. It's a great full circle. I am so fortunate to have the most amazing advisory board made up of talented, committed, and passionate women. I am very honored to work with all of you. You all are true gems. Thank you. The work we have been doing for the past 20 years has had an impact on the lives of many women and girls in Howard County. And we've done it with the support of our founders, past advisory board members, our donors, our nonprofit partners, and our sponsors. And we have done it with the support of the Community Foundation of Howard County, where we are a field of interest fund. We benefited 20 years ago under the guidance of then Foundation CEO Barbara Lawson, and now under the guidance of CEO Beverly White Seals. We could not have done this without all of you, all of us. Tonight is very special for us. Of course, we had hoped to be celebrating our 20th anniversary annual celebration in person, but because of ongoing COVID concerns, we decided to celebrate throughout the entire 20th anniversary year and focus on some of the business of the WGC virtually tonight. And then we plan to follow up with a celebratory toast outside on Wednesday, June 15th, when it will be safe to be in together. In the meantime, please see the chat. We'll be putting a lot of great information in there. And if you have comments or questions, please put them in there. Let me start by reading our mission statement. The Women's Giving Circle is building a community of philanthropists and creating a permanent legacy to address the needs of women and girls in Howard County. I'm here to tell you that on our 20th anniversary year, we have lived up to our mission and the state of the WGC is strong. I'm going to provide you with a few highlights to illustrate this. As of this year, we will have given just over $1 million in grants to our nonprofit partners in Howard County that have programs that benefit women and girls. And this is through over 250 grants. Our endowment, the founders made an early decision to create an endowment so that we would have funds to support women and girls in Howard County in perpetuity. And on our 20th anniversary, we have a $1.3 million endowment. We are one of the very few giving circles in the country that have an endowment and one of this size. Bravo. I am very grateful to our founders for having the foresight to do this and the oversight of our current WGC Treasurer, Kim Agnor, and Finance Committee Chair, Lynn Schaefer, who are helping to guide our efforts. And we have over 1,600 unique donors who have given to the WGC in the last 20 years. These numbers are a powerful illustration of how we have lived up to the mission created by our founders. We will be reviewing some of our specific efforts in a moment, but I would like to highlight something that is perhaps closest to my heart, our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. On our 20th anniversary year, I am so proud to report that we have invested several years in developing a diversity, equity, and inclusion framework for all the work that we do. Our phenomenal executive director and one of the original founders, Buffy Beaudoin-Schwartz, had been working on DEI efforts in the philanthropic sector nationally and brought the important work and resources to our circle. I instantly embraced it, as did our advisory board, as we knew this was going to be pivotal work for our organization. We have always embraced diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we were ready to take action to embed the principles into everything that we do. We are on a journey and continue to learn every day, but our advisory board is fully invested in this work, and it is now woven into the fabric of all our efforts. We have worked with other giving circles nationally and have received both national and local funding to support our efforts, and we remain committed to this very important work. Among efforts that I have, recent efforts that have been born from the DEI focus, I am particularly proud of the WGC's Our Giving, Our Stories, run by former advisory board member Melinda Madzel, that elevates the voices and stories of philanthropists across our county, and our first social justice grant this past year for the implementation of a leadership development program for women of color in Howard County. I am deeply moved and extremely proud of this important work. And it is what I sincerely hope will be my legacy when my term ends as WGC chair this December. Sorry, I get emotional, but I'm so proud of this. Thanks to each of you who have supported WGC through the years with your time, talent, and treasures. You have helped WGC grow and expand our collective reach as we strive to build a community of philanthropists and help women and girls in Howard County live safe, healthy, and happier lives. Tonight, we are so honored to have a message from County Executive Calvin Ball, who is not only recognizing Women's History Month and International Women's Day, but our 20th anniversary year as well. The County Executive has presented a proclamation on our behalf. Take a listen.
March is Women's History Month, a time to unite and honor the significant impacts made by women of our county, state, country, and world. Listening to the stories of their struggles, perseverance, trailblazing, and innovation, we have much to gain from observing Women's History Month. It's also a perfect time to recognize our extraordinary philanthropic organizations like the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. For 20 years, you've created a permanent legacy to address the needs of women and girls in Howard County. You've helped ensure every woman has the right to an adequate and sustainable quality of life and the opportunity to develop to their fullest potential. It's a pleasure to congratulate you on 20 years of service to our community. To honor your 20th anniversary and International Women's Day, I want to present the Women's Giving Circle with this proclamation, and it reads, to celebrate the impact of local philanthropy in Howard County, Maryland, this certificate is hereby presented on this 8th day of March, 2022 to acknowledge the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County on your 20th anniversary. A champion of collective giving, you are a valued community partner offering transformative resources and opportunity to women and girls of all backgrounds and abilities. Due to your charitable efforts, you have supported nonprofits with more than 250 grants totaling more than $1 million. You have also enhanced your ongoing commitment to our community by securing a $1.3 million endowment from more than 1,600 donors. As part of this anniversary, I congratulate the outstanding leadership and dedicated staff for your ongoing devotion to inclusion and empowerment for everyone. I wish you decades of more success. Let's keep pushing forward to a better, brighter future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive Ball. We deeply appreciate your support and our 20 years of partnership with our wonderful Howard County government. And now I would like to introduce our 20th anniversary co-chairs, Jennifer Bodenseek, who is our vice chair, and Candace Dotson-Reed, who is our grants committee co-chair. They will provide an overview of our plans this year.
Thank you so much, Barb. As co-chair of our grants committee, along with Allison Canning, we are proud to announce that we will give $200,000 away in grants this year in honor of our 20th anniversary year. This is more than we have given in 1 year, and it's because of the support of all of you. We will be supporting many of our longstanding partners like JA Rising Women, encouraging entrepreneurship among high school age young women, Howard Community College Educational Foundation, providing scholarships for women reentering the workforce, the Young Women's Giving Circle, now merged with Youth in Philanthropy at the Community Foundation, thanks to the efforts of Lee Draminsky and April Force Pardo, and 20 years later, a reimagined Journey 2.0 for middle school age girls. And we are excited to be investing in new partners like Just Living Advocacy, led by Net Stokes, that is supporting women who lead single parent households, and the Third and the Highland Project to develop a leadership pipeline for women of color in Howard County, led by Laura Bacon. And that's just to mention a few. And as always, we will be supporting our amazing emergency response network partners, working with our community to support women and their families with emergency needs. The ERN was created over 19 years ago in response to the desire of many of our donors to provide direct help to other women in need in our community. To date, our ERN has assisted over 150 women and their children and organizations who benefited from over $150,000 from donors who have responded to a call to action through WGC's ERN. Take a look here about how and why we started it.
I think the successes and meeting the mission is very obvious when you look at any part of the Giving Circle. For me, particularly the Response Network, for example, I mean, the instant effect of the Response Network is extraordinary. It started in 2003 with me going to all the nonprofit agencies in the county and meeting with them and getting wish lists. We started getting requests from individual women, from school counselors, just from people in the community who had heard of women in need.
My experience has been that women want to reach out and help each other, and that's been proven to me again and again every time I send out the Response Network.
And it needed to be a woman who needed a one-time amount of money. She had had some immediate crisis, but she would be able to get back on her feet.
I would send out that email for help for another woman, and I just remember the feeling of those emails coming back at me, just all these women who I didn't know instantly writing to me and saying, yes, 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 I'll help. And it just so affirmed, you know, my faith in people at a time that I wasn't so sure I had a lot of faith in people. And honestly, there were many days that I just felt like that Response Network, you know, reaffirm my faith. I used to say in womanity because it wasn't really humanity, it was women.
Just amazing. That gives me the chills. That's one of my favorite parts of what we do. And so, in fact, this year we're excited to make a special announcement. As part of the $200,000 in grants we will give away this year in honor of the 20th anniversary, tonight we are announcing $20,000 in grants to our 10 Emergency Response Network partners. That will be $2,000 each, which goes above and beyond our funding throughout the year. I think that deserves a little bit of a round of applause. At first, we were thinking about providing a giveaway as part of this event, but decided with the guidance of our wonderful 20th anniversary committee, and thank you all, to provide additional funds to our partners in honor of this year. We are honored to partner with these organizations doing such important work in our community, and we are so glad many of them are with us this evening. Thank you so much for the incredible, important work you do and for your partnership. We could not be more proud of what we've done with our our Emergency Response Network the last 19 years. Thanks to our founders who started it and all of those who have helped keep it alive and flourishing so that we can support women and families in our community. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Candace. We are really so proud of our nonprofit partners and what we've done as a community with the Emergency Response Network. And we are able to give all the grants Candace mentioned and more because of all of you and your collective generosity as Circle members. Thank you. All donations, regardless of the size, are valued and appreciated. Everyone who gives is a donor to the Circle and considered a member. And all member gifts support our grant making, our core strengths, and/or our endowment. 80 cents of every dollar given to the Circle goes directly to our grant making efforts. And 20 cents of every dollar goes to support our core strengths, so we can ensure we are able to continue our important work each year. The only exceptions are gifts to the Emergency Response Network, where 100% of the gifts go to address the stated emergency and for any specific donor-directed gifts. Tonight, we are so proud to announce that in honor of our 20th anniversary, we'll not only be giving away $200,000 in grants, but we have a goal to raise $200,000 as well under the leadership of the Circle Membership and Development Chair and Vice Chairs, Melissa Curtin and Kashana Holland. Can you believe that it's March and we are already over halfway there and meeting our goal? That means we already have 100,000 towards our $200,000 goal, which is just amazing. So yes, Barbara, yes. Just so exciting to see that. What I want to share with you is how we're going to meet that goal. And because of your generosity, there are 4 distinct ways that we can offer members to give. There's the community member. This is how many of you have been giving to the Women's Giving Circle for years through the Emergency Response Network, annual support in honor of someone. Those are your annual gifts. And so we hope you'll continue to be community members. Another way is sponsor members. Just like tonight and sponsoring the 20th anniversary this year, we can't thank you all enough for sponsoring this evening and participating. That's another great way to be a member and part of the work of the Women's Giving Circle. And then there's legacy members. This is a gift to our endowment or through planned giving. And tonight we're excited to announce a very new opportunity to engage the Women's Giving Circle members, our Big Gift member. The Big Give is for those who want to learn more about grant making to women and girls through hands-on learning and grant making experiences this year. The opportunity to participate in the Big Give is open from tonight until May 31st. Here's how it works. Participants will meet once a month for 4 months, July through October, to learn together about the landscape of philanthropy, the Women's Giving Circle grant making, nonprofits in Howard County, and then vote together of where to give their dollars and grants. The amount of grants to give out will be based on how many people sign up for the Big Give. I hope you'll join me and sign up right away. Big Give members will each contribute $1,200 and will have one vote where to give their grant money. Teams of up to 4 women can be formed who collectively give $1,200 as a team, and the team will have the vote on where to give the money out in the community. We will provide a slate of potential grantees for consideration who are current grantees or partners of the circle. Our goal is to have at least 20 women giving through the inaugural Big Give. If we have 20, we'll be able to give at least 20,000, and I hope we can give a lot more. We are excited about this new opportunity. Invite all of you to join us. You can learn more and sign up at the link in the chat or on the website.
I'm so excited about the Big Give. I'm trying to think about who I can put on my team, how we're going to do this. I'm excited, Jen, and I'm sure Jennifer, and I'm sure you are too.
I am very excited. I think it's just a great way for everybody to get engaged and really get to know nonprofits in the community and what's happening right on the ground.
It's going to be great. In fact, this whole year is going to be great as we reflect upon and acknowledge the work we've done together throughout our 20-year history. One way we will be doing this is by telling the story of our last 20 years through just launched 20 Years, 20 Stories series. You're getting a theme here. There's a lot of things we're announcing tonight. Working with former advisory board member Mickey Gomez, we are publishing 2 stories a month beginning today through December that can be found on our website and on social media. We hope you enjoy this series that helps tell the story of what the WGC, what all of us have accomplished together.
Thanks, Candace. It's about what we have accomplished together. And this past year, the Women's Giving Circle embarked on a journey to better understand the challenges and needs of women and girls right here in Howard County as part of our 20th anniversary year. This year, through our new online State of Women and Girls in Howard County. Our goal was twofold. First, to gather existing data and develop a compilation of baseline information through a gender lens that identifies key issues that impact women and girls in Howard County in order to inform our past, current, and future grant making. And to provide other Howard County funders, nonprofit partner organizations, government agencies, and the community for use in determining funding, supporting, and implementing programs, and developing legislation and policy to address the needs of women and girls in our county. Having gathered information from government, field, research experts, and identified key issue areas impacting women and girls in Howard County, we believe we are well positioned to learn from our past and enhance our future grant making to better support women and girls in our community. And we hope that others in our community will utilize the baseline data to enhance support for women and girls as well. We are grateful to the Circle founders, Barbara Lawson and Jean Moon, for funding and partnering with us on developing this effort. Sabina Tosh and Shasta Keating for being the principal researchers, the Horizon Foundation, United Way of Central Maryland, and the Community Foundation of Howard County for their funding support, the Women's Commission of Howard County for your partnership, and for all government agencies, nonprofit partners, and others who provided data and expertise. We're going to speak more to the state of women and girls in Howard County, and I'd like to turn it over to Executive Director Buffy Beaudoin-Schwartz to get this important conversation started. Buffy, all yours.
Great, thanks so much, Jennifer and Candace. You know, our 20th year is such a milestone for us, as you've heard, where we are taking the year to not only highlight and celebrate our impact, but also to take stock of what we've done and our opportunities for the future. And it's time to reflect upon why. Why are we focusing our efforts on funding women and girls in Howard County? And the why is what our keynote speaker, Jeannie Infante-Sager, will help us better understand tonight as she discusses gaps in growth in philanthropic support for women and girls. Jeannie's the director of the National Women's Philanthropy Institute, which is housed under the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy in Indianapolis. WPI envisions a world where women donors understand and use their growing power and influence to support causes they care about, where fundraisers and nonprofit leaders take women seriously and approach them in ways that appeal to them, and where both women and men are giving more, and giving more intentionally and effectively. Jeannie leads WPI's efforts to translate research to practice, works closely with WPI's National Advisory Council, and serves on the executive leadership team for the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. She's been quoted in a wide array of media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Fortune magazine. An active speaker on a range of topics related to women's philanthropy, she's presented to national and international audiences. And she serves as an associate professor with the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, teaches with the fundraising school, and earned her master's degree in philanthropic studies from Indiana U. Having worked with and benefited from the Women's Philanthropy Institute for so many years, we are thrilled to have you with us tonight, Jeannie. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I am the one who is thrilled and excited to be able to accept your invitation. And thank you so much for reaching out and letting me join in the celebration. Buffy, thank you for the kind introduction. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be with you to celebrate International Women's Day, but most importantly, to celebrate 20 years of collective giving in Howard County. Big applause there. You have been trailblazers in women's philanthropy for over 2 decades and true leaders in your community. I'll just say very quickly, for those of you who might not be familiar with the Women's Philanthropy Institute, I think it's really important to note that we are the only research institute in the world dedicated solely to the study of gender and philanthropy. And I always like to give a shout out to our host organization, Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, which happens to be the first and only school of philanthropy in the world. And so just want to give a shout out for what a kind of resources you can find both at the school and at our website at WPI. So please, please, please feel free to visit. So here's what I want to say. The bottom line is that gender matters in philanthropy. And so today I'm going to share just a few of our over 150 research findings, and in particular, focus on the data that looks at giving to women and girls' causes. At WPI, we believe that to solve challenges large and small, our world needs more strategic philanthropy. And so I'll start off with sharing why we believe engaging better with women as donors will help women's philanthropy reach its full power and potential. You've already gotten a sense of the power and potential from the last 20 years of how the Women's Giving Circle in Howard County has succeeded and what they've done in your community. So you're part of that. So here's the short story. Today, women have more influence than ever before in all areas of society. They earn more and they have more purchasing power. They have more financial power within their households. They are in more positions of leadership across all sectors. They have broader and deeper networks and are more active on social media. Women have more tools available to them to affect positive change in society. And they are more likely to use this range of tools. So more and more women have increased access to education, income, and wealth. And we know that these are three key predictors of philanthropy. At the same time, more women are the primary breadwinner in their families. And in fact, 40% of US women who work out-earn their husbands. More women are financially independent, and some reports suggest that 90% of women are the chief financial officers of their households. And so these factors are central to women's expanding role in philanthropy. It just makes sense, right? And women's wealth is rising. Today, women hold about 40% of global wealth. And the Boston Consulting Group says that by 2025, women will have accumulated assets worth $110 trillion. And women are expected to inherit 70% of the wealth that will be passed down over the next 2 generations. And remember, women tend to inherit twice, once from their parents and then from their spouse. And women are also more likely to give. And our research at WPI shows that women's growing wealth is great news for the philanthropic sector. Across all ages, races, and income levels, women give more and give differently than their male counterparts. Not only that, but we found that the more women's wealth grows, the more they will give to charitable organizations. And how women think about wealth differs too. According to a US Trust study, women are nearly twice as likely as men to say that giving to charity is the most satisfying aspect of having wealth. So unlocking the full potential of women's philanthropy requires us to understand how gender shapes giving behavior. And so to build a powerful and diverse force of female philanthropists, just like the ones found at the Women's Giving Circle at Howard County, we need to know more about what drives women to give. And the Women's Philanthropy Institute exists for that reason, to conduct, curate, and disseminate rigorous research that grows women's philanthropy. And WPI's focus on research about gender and philanthropy, this field of study is reasonably new. WPI released its first study in just 2010. And few studies before that considered gender as a factor in its work. Since 2010, though, we have built an amazing reservoir of findings that point to one undeniable fact: gender matters in philanthropy. After all, men and women are different in so many ways. So this is somewhat intuitive, right? If we just look at the field of fundraising, it was created in the 1960s, a time when men, predominantly white men, were presumed to be the primary donor. That is no longer true. In fact, a 2020 report from Blackbaud found that your average donor is a 64-year-old white woman. Donors are men and women. Barb got a big smile on her face. Donors are men and women. They are all ages, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, religions, and no religion, local and across the globe. And so fundraising strategies must adapt to the changing environment and understand that men and women have different motivations for giving and different patterns of giving. I can never stress this enough. One is not better than the other. They are simply different. And we know that women are driving philanthropy today in bold ways, at the grassroots level, in corporate boardrooms, as individual philanthropists, in giving circles, and as leaders in nonprofits. And so the best is yet to come as more women step fully into their philanthropic power and bring others alongside them. So our research spans a range of topics, from retirement to giving circles, to impact investing, to the transmission of generosity. And across these topics, we apply a gender lens to better understand where, how, and why women and men give differently. And again, our entire body of research can be found online at our website, and feel free to explore and engage in our work. So I just really want to go over quickly some of our foundational findings that really look at women as donors. So when we look at who is philanthropic and how do demographic factors affect giving by women and men, we know that factors such as age, family dynamics, marital status, and income influence giving by men and women. And we know that women, all women, across racial and ethnic groups and generations, are more likely than their male counterparts to give. When we think about marriage, we find that marriage affects giving in positive ways. We know that being married increases both the likelihood and the amount of giving. Married and cohabitating couples tend to give more to charity than single men or single women. And while most couples make giving decisions jointly, women are more likely than men to be the sole decider in a household. We also found that women give more. This holds true online as well as offline. More women than men give gifts on social and online platforms. And we know that women are drawn to an expanded definition of philanthropy. And in our Women Give 2019 report, we encouraged women from all backgrounds to fully understand the diverse acts of generosity that are represented in philanthropy. And this broader definition of philanthropy encompasses both formal and informal definitions of the word, rooted in this idea of giving back. And research shows that women tend to give more than money, using their time, their expertise, their advocacy, and their networks to apply all of their resources to work for good. This is especially important for communities of color, where women can be seen as bridge builders within philanthropy, embracing a very rich and broad definition of philanthropy and using their giving to celebrate and support their communities. And so prominent women philanthropists like Melinda French Gates reveal a new era in women's philanthropy, where women are purposefully adopting platforms to leverage their philanthropy and exert influence on others. And her commitment to women and girls in particular has been paramount to creating a global movement, catching the attention of other donors, foundations, and organizations. And Melinda French Gates and others are deliberate and intentional about a focus on giving to women and girls because there is room to grow. So let's talk about giving to women and girls causes in particular. So this is relatively new research for us. The bulk of our research looks at women as donors. Exploring women and girls as recipients of philanthropy began with the publication of the Women and Girls Index in 2019. So the WGI is the only systematically generated comprehensive index of charitable organizations dedicated to women and girls in the United States. WPI created the index to provide philanthropy researchers and practitioners, as well as policymakers and the general public, with a deeper understanding of the landscape of women's and girls organizations, particularly the amount of charitable giving that they receive from individuals, foundations, and corporations. So the first WGI report provided a snapshot of this information for 2016. And last year's report built on this groundbreaking research by adding data from 2012 to 2015 and 2017. The 2021 report expands this longitudinal picture to include 2018, which is the most recent year that finalized IRS data on charitable organization is available. But this year, in addition to releasing an updated report, we've also made the WGI data more accessible to researchers and the general public at www.womenandgirlsindex.org. And this user-friendly website allows visitors to download the full list of WGI organizations, as well as search for organizations based on criteria like focus area, size, and geographic location. So I always find it helpful in clarifying what we mean by women's and girls organizations, since there was no existing definition when we first developed the index in 2019. So a key step was determining their criteria for inclusion. So organizations that are included in the Women's and Girls Index are either dedicated to primarily women and girls, a good example is Girls Inc. or Planned Parenthood, or collectives of women and girls that serve general philanthropic purposes. A great example are junior leagues or women's auxiliaries. So this criteria may seem straightforward, but applying them can be quite challenging since charitable organizations tend to have multiple programs that serve different populations. All right, so just want to be clear on who we consider a WGI and so how we are capturing these numbers. So turning to the findings from this year's report, the new data reveals both gaps and growth in philanthropic support for women and girls. As noted on the previous slide, the updated WGI contains more than 47,000 charitable organizations. These organizations received a total of $8.2 billion in philanthropic support in 2018, which represents 1.9% of overall charitable giving that year. And during the 5-year period ending in 2018, this percentage increased only slightly, seeing the strongest growth really from 2017 to 2018. To put this in context, philanthropic support for women's and girls organizations makes up a fraction of what that received by organizations in traditional nonprofit subsectors like health, the arts, and the environment. Women and girls organizations received less than 2/3 of the philanthropic support received by the largest nonprofit subsector, which is religion, and less than 15% of the philanthropic support received by the second largest subsector, which is education. The next slide helps visualize this information. So compared with philanthropic support at 1.9%, let's remember that 1.9%, women's and girls organizations make up an even smaller portion of total charitable organizations, along other financial measures like revenue, expenses, and assets. However, across the 5-year period ending in 2018, women's and girls organizations have grown at a faster rate than other charitable organizations, especially in terms of revenue and expenses. So what this suggests is that the financial resources of women's and girls organizations are beginning to catch up with those of other charitable organizations in some areas. But compared with other financial measures, the assets of women's and girls organizations are growing at a slower rate, indicating that these organizations may have more work to do regarding long-term financial resources. So again, gaps in growth. Now let's look more closely within the women's and girls subsector. The WGI breaks organizations down into several mission-related categories, such as reproductive health and family planning, and gender and family and gender-based violence. Although women's and girls organizations saw strong growth in philanthropic support overall from 2017 to 2018 at 6%, certain types of WGI organizations experienced outsized growth during this 1-year period. So at 37.1%, philanthropic support for women's and girls organizations focused on the environment increased by more than 6 times the rate of WGI organizations overall from 2017 to 2018. At 32.3%, women's and girls organizations dedicated to civil rights and advocacy grew at more than 5 times the overall WGI rate during this period. So the growth suggests that donors may increasingly see an intersection between gender equity and other pressing topics, such as climate change and racial equity. So how can we grow giving to women and girls? I thought I'd share some insights from our research that looks at women as donors that might offer some ideas. So first and foremost, women are more likely than men to give to women's and girls' causes, but men still give. They tend to be motivated to give by the women in their lives or having a woman with a significant cause that is important to them. A great example is breast cancer. And so if you care about women's and girls' causes, it's important to increase support because rising levels of giving matters. In a study that we did on social norms, we learned that when men perceive that other men and women are donating to these causes, they are more likely to donate. So people are paying attention and they're following each other's examples. In a study that we did that looked at women donors who supported women and girls causes, we learned that high net worth women in particular educate themselves, they take risks, and they want to see impact returns on their investments. So for organizations, it's important to educate donors about the issues you address and tying their donations to specific outcomes. Certainly don't be afraid to ask for big gifts. High net worth women are willing to bet on women and girls. And we know from the research that donors who support women's and girls' causes express motivations in terms of their personal experiences and the belief that funding women and girls initiatives leads to societal progress. So we often say that women give from the head and heart. It's key to build relationships with women donors and ask them about relevant personal experiences to help them connect with your mission. And in our All In for Women and Girls report, we found that women's fund and foundation donors want to do more than write a check. They are more likely to participate in activities that enable more engagement, such as serving on a nonprofit board, talking with other donors, or participating in giving circles. And how can we be more intentional about engaging more men as allies, and the power of interconnecting relationships that support women's philanthropy, specifically giving to organizations lifting women and girls? So I'll quote one of my mentors, Karen Kahn, who likes to say, all the money for all the women now. So philanthropy is growing, knowledge about giving and how to give back is growing. Awareness of the importance of women and girls and those causes is growing. And so a focus on individual giving in particular continues to be important, as the latest Giving USA report shows that 70% of all giving comes from individuals. But when you consider bequests and gifts that come from family foundations, which are categorized in a different area, this actual number grows to nearly 86%. We know that demographics are shifting dramatically. I gave you all the stats earlier in the presentation, but we also know that philanthropy is becoming ever more elastic. 15 years ago, researchers were just beginning to consider gender as a factor in charitable giving. And now, again, we have far more data points than I can share with you in just 20 minutes. So if you want to explore, go to our website and learn more. And the research suggests that shifts in fundraising strategies to engage women and men in ways that appeal to each will help grow philanthropy. And while we can and should celebrate that in 2020, charitable giving was over $471 billion, think about what this number could be if we were engaging more women. So women's philanthropy, long the backbone of civic engagement, continues to evolve. And today, women contribute their time, talent, treasure, and testimony in innovative, creative, and trailblazing ways. And more women among us are thinking about philanthropy and harnessing this power to do good. And we always like to say at WPI, research is just the beginning. It's what you do with it that matters. And I have another favorite Zoom background that I've been using a lot lately that says, lead with data, follow with heart. So I hope that some of this information really resonates with you and reflects how you give. And the last thing I'll say is that the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County has been a beacon for women and girls in your community for 2 decades. All of you are trailblazing philanthropists and an inspiring force for good. And I thank you so much for allowing me to celebrate International Women's Day with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. It's just incredible to hear all the data. I just can't believe how little is really going to women and girls. I mean, we have a really great opportunity through the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County to do that in our own communities, but just seeing the data on a national scope too. So thank you. We appreciate you setting the context for our why and what's happening across the country with regards to funding women and girls, and being with us today as we now discuss our new state of women and girls right here in Howard County. Joining Jeannie is Candace again as our grants committee co-chair, as well as Sabina Taj, a former Women's Giving Circle advisory board member and one of the principal researchers, along with Shasta Keating, for the state of women and girls in Howard County. Thank you all for joining us to discuss some of our initial findings here locally. As mentioned earlier, the State of Women and Girls is an online compilation of baseline data that highlights gender differences and inequalities right here in Howard County. We leveraged and utilized information from the 2021 Maryland Women a status report published by the Maryland Commission for Women, which includes concerns raised by women across the state of Maryland that were presented in 6 categories by the commission. In the state of women and girls in Howard County, the circle presents information in the same 6 categories in order to remain consistent with state analysis. The 6 categories include demographics and diversity, work and the economy, education and educators, health and well-being, safety and justice, leadership, and political participation. So I'm just excited to ask you all some questions about some of the local data and how it reflects and what you're seeing. So Jeannie, I'm going to start with you because we're coming right off of your information. And my first question is for you is, with this increased support for specific issues affecting women and girls, including the reproductive health and family and gender based biases, are you seeing other areas of increased investments? And especially if there are any within the categories that we're looking at?
Yes. So as you noted, we in the report, we only called out the women's and girls index categories that saw the largest increases. But when we look at all of the subsectors, we did see increases in general women's health, family and gender-based violence, women's and girls human services, women's and girls education, women serving women and girls, women's and girls international, and women's and girls civil rights and advocacy. And so while we've classified them differently in terms of name and categories, they match up. They are consistent with the categories that you have identified in the State of Women and Girls in Howard County list. Now, what I'll say is some of these categories grew more than others from 2017 to 2018. So these are not all equal, but these are the ones that we did see an increase. And it makes sense that most areas saw an increase and most of the rest stayed flat, since the Women and Girls Index generally increases and increased year over year. So this is in line with what we would expect, that we would see some increases. So all that being said, it's still 1.9%. When we did this in 2016, it was 1.6%. And so we had really hoped to, all things, to get to 2%. And we couldn't even do that. So there is certainly room for improvement. And so super excited about what you are doing with the State of Women and Girls in Howard County and using data to help drive giving. And what I love about the WGI is that we have a number. We have a number that we can measure and attempt to move the needle on, right? So we got to 1.9%. We'll see where we get to next year. And let's hope we can at least get over 2.
No, and I think that's what we're all about, is how do we move the needle? And to your point is, how do we use data to help us really identify those needs here in Howard County and make a huge difference? And so Sabina, you being the principal researcher on this information and taking it down to the Howard County level, when you looked at this baseline data, were there any surprises in what you saw, or anything that you were like, aha, this could be something we need to really focus on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In terms of giving, we've looked at giving is up, but still, it's a small amount, and we do need to increase that amount. But making the investment also with our voice and our advocacy and really structural change is going to be just as important. And so when you look at the structural systems have stayed largely the same, even given that we are making progress. I wasn't altogether surprised by some of the findings that we know that nationally and internationally, women there is a wage gap. There's a gender wage gap. It's remained so. So there's work to be done. Women are likely to have median earnings that are less than men at every educational level. This is Howard County, which was, it's not surprising, but it should be. It should be shocking to all of us, and there should be change that occurs from that. I'm not surprised that health and medical disparities exist. I'm not surprised that childcare costs disproportionately affect women, internationally, locally, statewide. And then, of course, there's a gender STEM gap, both in employment and in majors and class selection. And women in Howard County are less likely to own their own firms, less likely to be employed in STEM occupations such as computer engineering and science, as well as math occupations. And this is Howard County, right? This is sort of like the science tech based, and still we're seeing those differences and gaps. What I am surprised by is how often public and private data is not collected with a gender and particularly a race overlay. So a lot of times we tend to be blind on the data on those issues. And that is really something, if you want to make change, I think all of us have sort of talked about, if we don't have the data, we can't make the change because we don't know the full story. And this is why I'm grateful to the Women's Giving Circle to start this process, is really do data-based strategic planning on philanthropy. And as Jeannie said, start with the data and then go with the heart, because that's really how we will make change. And also very surprised on how little education and data exists as it relates to domestic violence, given that about 68% of the population being impacted by domestic violence is women. So I was surprised in Howard County that we just couldn't get a hold of that information, and that there wasn't a huge education campaign around this, because it is an issue that impacts Howard County.
Great, Sabina. Speaking of heart, Candace, because of course the grant making piece is near and dear to our hearts, and especially yours, because you live and breathe it with Allison and the whole team. Can you speak to what we found in terms of the past giving, and thinking about $1 million that we've given out there, and how that may or may not align to those 6 categories when we start looking at data?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And I always get to talk about the fun things as the grants co-chair. So I'm really happy to do that. I also have this in front of me because I want to be precise about the numbers and get this right. Over the 20 years, we say $1 million. It's actually a little bit more. It's $1,043,807 in grants that we've given out. And I'll talk a little bit about the categories. Safety and justice, $217,000. Leadership and political participation, $363,000. Demographics and diversity, $58,000, and that's a focus area of ours. Work and the economy, $77,000. Health and well-being, $77,000. And education and educators, $196,000. And there's a small percentage, $55,000 that will be left for specific grants that we're going to focus on. And so that's the breakdown as it relates to the categories that were noted in the report. And, I think we've done a great job. And like with everything, success is never final. And we will be using this report to guide our future efforts.
Great, Candace. Sabina, if we go back to thinking about some of the data collected to date, what opportunities do you really see for our community to identify and close some gaps and gender data? You shared earlier that there's definitely some missing data out there, but how do we close that gap in gender data?
Yeah, so as is in any research, organizations and all agencies collect data in different ways, and to bring that data together is a challenge. So you'll see, it would be nice if there was an agreement in how we collected data, how we reported the data, so we could get some uniform information to make change. I think another opportunity we have is to collect. We often say there's 2 Howard counties. There's also the picture of there's 2 Howard County stories of women, and having informal groups and informal qualitative data collection to inform what quantitative data that we need to be able to inform our decisions in grant making would be really important. So if we could get that group together, or I don't know what the process would be right now and who would be involved, but if we could get something like that, I think that would be powerful. I think we definitely would love to see this be a statewide effort. We know there's a state report, but having other local communities collect data at their county level would be a really important thing for us to see, to be able to compare, to be able to collaborate on programs, and to look at it as a state level data collectively. And then lastly, I think, as we began to do this, we saw that there were opportunities to collect information with a gender, race, and ethnicity overlay. And so having agencies come together to talk about, or even if there was a Women's Giving Circle initiative, to talk about, could there be these added pieces of information that we could collect? We collected a baseline, but could we do this in a more comprehensive way? And can we have missing data, inform some of the ways that we can't see the picture, particularly as it comes to race and ethnicity. So I think that would be a useful thing to do as well.
And I think Sabina too, I mean, we touched on obviously why we're virtual in this work tonight, but even the COVID, thinking about the impact of what it is on women and girls in our community, all that data is still coming in and still being collected. And we don't even know what that's going to look like as we tend to transition into whatever our new normal is. Is there anything else that you see from that lens?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I think, Buffy and Candace and you and I, we've all talked about how do we collect this information in a meaningful way and translate that into grant making. And I think that will take time. And it's absolutely a direction that we want to go in and collect more information and do more. We'd like to have this information through data, but we'd also like to hear the stories of women and have them tell their stories and try to get a more complete picture, because so much of it's in the stories, it's in the women, it's that's how you really get the complete picture. So I think definitely we want to do that.
So Candace, that obviously leads to thinking about how does grant making and thinking about opportunities to utilize this data to apply to our DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion lens and our grant making for the future. And what's your feedback? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, a couple of things that I'm thinking about. I mean, first, and I think she's on this call, I'd like to give an acknowledgement, a shout out to Judy Smith, who led the efforts with our diversity, equity, and inclusion work group that created the framework for us to view our grant making through an equity lens. I mean, that was very important work. I know Buffy worked on that as well. And that has really informed how we're looking at grant making moving forward. The other piece, and Sabina's touched on this, right? Like there's not enough data there to tell us, there's not enough demographic data. And I think we really need that data, and the Women's Giving Circle can serve as a lead on collecting that data, or inspiring folks to collect that data so that we can make more informed decisions about the needs of our community and about how we can address those needs with our grant making process. And then the other thing I just wanted to highlight, which is a little bit not off topic, but not exactly related to the question, is a point that Jeannie made before. And that is, and we did a really great job of this. This was led by Melinda Metzel this past, I've lost track of time. I can't tell if it was this last year or the year before, but in the past year, highlighting women, particularly women of color, whose philanthropy shows up in a different way. And I think that was a really important initiative. We did it during Black Philanthropy Month in August, and really highlighting and telling the stories of women, women of color, Black women, who give in a very different way. And I think that's a really important thing that we did, and invited folks, not invited, but brought folks to the table to talk about philanthropy in a very different way. And so I hope that we continue those efforts. But I think that's what I'm thinking about as we move forward with both this report and how we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion on the grants committee.
Great, Candace. Jeannie, to wrap up, Women's Philanthropy Institute's Women and Girls Index shows philanthropic support for women and girls organizations remains a small share, very small, charitable giving. How can we leverage recent gender equity efforts to accelerate funding to women and girls? What's your advice or feedback? And how do you, what advice do you give us? I mean, this is our 20th anniversary. This is a way for us to go big with the Big Give, along with other things that we're doing out there. But just your advice on how we leverage and accelerate funding to women and girls.
So when I think about leverage is such an important verb for all women philanthropists, because I think back to Candace's point, we're drawn to this expanded definition of philanthropy. So this understanding of how we leverage all of our resources and all of the tools available to us to really lean into our generosity. So is it through impact investing? Is it through crowdfunding? Is it through the investment of time, time and talent? Is it through advocacy? Is it through connecting your networks? Is it becoming, dipping our toes into public policy, right? And how we can influence that, right, Sabina, in the work that you're doing. And so when we look at leveraging recent gender equity efforts, and in particular this spotlight on funding in this area, right? As I mentioned earlier, in terms of social norms, people are paying attention. So this might not have been an area that people were supporting in the past, right? But if more people are making gifts to organizations that are really focused on making that systemic change with regards to gender equity, then more funding will come, and maybe we can close that gap faster. So I'll say that, so just in terms of being very public and investing in that area will lead to more investments from other people. And then when I think about how the amazing things that you are doing at the Women's Giving Circle to accelerate and amplify giving in celebration of your 20th anniversary, but also in addressing really important work in your community. What I'll say is I just caution, again, I lead with data, follow with heart. Women tend to get stuck here. They want to give, but they get stuck in their head. So what I'll say is, it's a cautionary tale, right? Like give, don't be afraid to give. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to trust in the organizations that you are encountering and meeting with, and don't get too stuck in the data and too stuck in the head is what I want to say. It's I love to tell people women's giving is nuanced and thoughtful. I mean, it's complex, we want to be confident. We want to know we're making an impact. So just find the right balance between head and heart. But definitely headed in the right direction, because what the data shows is that we need more investment. We need more investment in women and girls. And as Melinda French Gates says, when we lift women and girls, we lift entire communities. And you know that, and you've seen that on the front lines in the giving that you have already done. So.
Thank you, Jeannie, and thank you all for your wisdom and insights. If anyone has any questions, I hope you'll put it in the chat, and we'll definitely open it up. I'll have Buffy, if there's anything, just holler. But from the panel, if there's any last words that you have, and Candace, not to put you on the spot, but what would you think from a grant making the Women's Giving Circle might be in 20 years? What would that look like for you? And if anybody else wants to chime in and thinking about where this giving is going in the next 20 years. I mean, this is just our first 20 years. We got 20 more years plus to go. So I'm not to put you on this. I'm going to put you on the spot, Candace. That's just it. Because I was like, you're my partner here in this work. So.
I was like, that is fully on the spot, Jennifer. But
yes, it is. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. So I'm just going to tell you it's on the spot.
Yes. No. I mean, I think the first part is sort of why I'm excited about this report is that it gives us kind of a guidebook, right? Like a playbook. And I think the Women's Giving Circle for 20 years has done a phenomenal job of really focusing on women and girls in our community. And this is sort of the next part of that, right? Like the next 20, we're going to be, well informed on what the needs are, where the opportunities are, where the challenges are, and how we can play a role in sort of filling the gaps in those areas. I mean, I think, again, to Sabina's point about we don't have all the data as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. That's going to be a really, really important piece to collect. And so I hope in the next 20 years, we're playing a role where we're, like I said, filling some of those gaps and using the data to inform the decisions that we make, also with our heart in mind, which I love. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm excited about where we're headed. I will also say this is my my personal baby with the Women's Giving Circle. We're partnering with Highland, the Highland Group, and with the Highland Project, and with the Third on a leadership development program for women of color. I hope that we have 50 women each year going through that program, and really supporting women entrepreneurs, women of color entrepreneurs in our community. It's endless, and I hope my kid is participating, my daughter is participating in 20 years, and giving her thoughts on sort of where we should go as a community, and I think it's exciting. I'm excited and thrilled to be a part of this, and so we have some real opportunities here, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone to get it done.
Great, Candace. Jeannie or Sabina, thinking about what does the next 20 years bring? What do we hope to see? What are we hoping for our communities?
I'll just say, oh, go ahead, Sabina.
No, go ahead.
So I'll say, what I love is, yes, it's always about forward thinking. And recently we gathered, the Women's Philanthropy group kind of gathered to talk about trends that we're seeing in women's philanthropy. And Candace, you hit on so many of them. It's about intergenerational generosity, and what does that look like, and how do we pass that to our daughters, which is by the way very important. It's much more important.
And our sons, our sons too.
And yes, and our sons. However, the research, I know, but the research shows that for daughters in particular, it's important for them to see us model this behavior more so than boys and sons who will do this just by being told, but not daughters. They need to see it. They need to see it. So that's the difference. But anyway, so intergenerational transmission of generosity is something that I think we need to be intentional and thoughtful about. And then the other thing is about, so I often talk about, well, there were 3 T's, and then we expanded them to 5 T's, and now there's 6 T's. So it's time, talent, treasure. Everyone's pretty familiar with that, right? And then I like to talk about the gifts of testimony, which is advocacy, and also ties, which are your networks. It's a gift to share your networks with others, right? And to advocate and share your own passion, right? But the 6th T is trust. And I think that's really going to be something important moving forward when you look, especially in your grant making, whether it's trust-based philanthropy or whether it's just really engendering trust within your community about the important role that these organizations and really frontline responders are, the difference that they're making, and how you're funding them. So I'll leave you with those thoughts as you look ahead to the next 20 years, and how in particular the model of collective giving, and in particular the model and mission and vision of the Women's Giving Circle at Howard County has evolved and grown, and how it can continue to do that. So
thank you, Jeannie. Sabina, any last parting words on your
well, you asked about 20 years, and I hope we all work ourselves out of this job in 20 years. I hope that there is enough structural change, that there's enough justice balance, and there's enough advocacy, and that there is enough political will that we don't exist. So that would be my hope for 20 years. I know that that's not a realistic goal. 20, it took us a long time to get to this level of inequity, and it will take us some time to get out of it. But I think that having the T's and having a whole system collaborate with philanthropy, and Nikki and Barbara Lawson and Nikki Vernick both asked really good questions as how do we leverage this information in government, and how do we include the women who are impacted the most in this voice, and how do we collectively partner with them as equals, being impacted just because of chance that their circumstances are the way they are and ours are the way they are, and how does that partnership inform our philanthropy? Because I think they're the most informed, and I really hope that that voice becomes much louder and much more prevalent and much more equal in philanthropy than it is right now.
Great. Now there are a couple questions that finally came in through the chat. So we've got a few minutes, and so I'll look at these. We have Angie K who says she appreciates the point about head and heart, and sees a role for increasing our personal megaphones, if you will, to be vocal about our giving and our philanthropy and not being self-conscious about it, to bring our friends and family in with us. Does that sound appropriate? And I think Jeannie, you were really talking about that testimony and voice in there. Is there anything else that you would add?
So what I'll add is we just released today our Women Give 2022 report, which is all about looking at racial justice, gender, and giving and generosity. And in the background of that report, we talk about how the women in Martin Luther King's life, his wife, his mother-in-law, really influenced, his work, and really were ahead of him in terms of civil rights and racial justice causes. And there's a book out called The Three Mothers, which actually highlights and spotlights the mothers of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and James Baldwin, and how they shaped a nation through their sons. So what I'll say is we have our 6 T's, but there's also, we have so much influence as just women, and the roles that we play: mothers, daughters, wives, sisters. So I'll just put that out there on International Women's Day. It really is kind of beyond just we're talking about philanthropy, but it's really, there's so many ways that we can help and shape and influence the world that we want to see in big and small ways.
Can I add to that really quickly? It's such a phenomenal question and such a great point. And, stories are so important. And I know that's a part of what we do. And just really quickly, a story about a story. A couple of years ago, during the height of the pandemic, we had, during Black Philanthropy Month, a conversation with 2 friends, Jackie Rabowski, and with my friend Cynthia Bell. And there were a number of people who were on that particular webinar who texted me during the webinar, and they were like, it was so great to hear the many ways in which those women were contributing to the community and their philanthropic, ways and giving. And how can I be involved with the Women's Giving Circle? I don't have a ton of money, but I want to be involved because I was so inspired in hearing those stories. And so I think that's a great point, Angie, to bring up, is that the importance of talking about, our philanthropy. And some people are private, and that's fine. But if you're willing to share your story, you never know who you're going to impact. And that's, super important.
Absolutely. Yolanda Bruno asked, how does age figure in this? Jeannie, I know you talked a little bit about the average age of current giving and what that looks like. What are you seeing from a trends perspective and how age is figuring into giving?
So generations, whatever, there's a whole nother research line that really looks at differences in giving by generation. So the answer is yes, it does. And different generations expect different things. So there's a real focus on millennials right now because they're the next biggest generation behind the baby boomers. And so as an example, for millennials, they really are focused on impact. They are really, they're not generally motivated by tax advantages to giving. They're more likely to participate in crowdfunding and GoFundMe's, and so the way they engage in philanthropy is different than other generations. And that's just one example. So what I'll say is, yes, age matters. And it makes sense because when we give and how we behave as philanthropists is really tied up in our identity. And age is a piece of what influences how we see the world and the kind of world that we want to see. So yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you, Jeannie, and thank you everyone once again. You've really helped set the course for our grant making. And I think in the chat, I know Barbara Lawson mentioned moving county institutions and thinking about how this influences policy and thinking about from a government perspective too, and moving the needle there. And then I know Nikki Burdick was talking about how do we harness in high need communities, which I know we are really going to take a deep dive in as well, with looking at the data and engaging, having that voice, which I know Sabina also talked about, is we need to hear from our communities. So excited for us to set the course for grant making moving forward for the next 20 years and beyond. For those that are interested to hear more about the state of women, girls in Howard County, we will soon be hosting a conversation with Sabina and Shasta Keating to further discuss the data. So stay tuned, more information. I will not be surprised if it's not in your inbox by tonight or tomorrow morning. That's what my guess is. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Buffy to share what's next and announcements of things that are coming up. So Buffy, it's all yours.
Great, thanks. Thank you all so much for such a fantastic conversation. It really helped us kick off our 20th anniversary year in such an incredibly powerful and meaningful way. I just want to mention, going back to that great question about Angie, about kind of should we use our philanthropy to help engage others, make it seem and feel like it's part of our everyday lives, like it is for so many people, regardless of how much you give. People give in so many different ways. And with our giving, our stories that we've talked about tonight, over 80 women have been profiled so far, and we're really trying to elevate the powerful voices and stories of so many women in our community, and we mean philanthropists across the board. So not only do I hope you all take a look at those, but we would love to profile so many of you, so you can nominate others or nominate yourselves to be profiled for so many different reasons. So we hope you will check that out. What we want to tell you a couple of things that we have coming up. We have a number of things that you've heard so far. Please take a look at our calendar of events. Under the leadership of our events committee chair, Mary Thompson, and vice chair, Jade McDuffie McCleary, we're going to be hosting numerous virtual and in-person events throughout the year. So you can find that on our website under events. With our 20th anniversary sponsorships, thank you to the over 60 sponsors so far for our 20th anniversary year. So it's not just a sponsorship for tonight's event, but it's a sponsorship for our entire year. It's our events, it's our pink party in the park that we have coming up in June, and it's all of the virtual and in-person events that we're having. And it's a sponsorship of this entire year, marking 20 years in the community. So we hope you will consider that. I mentioned the pink party in the park. We had hoped to do this virtual today, like Barb had said. We're doing more of the business of our 20th anniversary year tonight virtually. And then when we can all be together on June 15th at 5:30 at the Robinson Nature Center, we're gonna have an opportunity to have a celebratory aspect to 20 years and a toast to all of you. We hope you will join us then. There's information on our website. And the Big Give membership. If you're interested in participating in our new Big Give that you heard about tonight, you can register on our website starting tonight through Tuesday, May 31st. So we hope you'll consider joining us. Also, as part of our 20th anniversary year, we launched in January our year-long feminine hygiene product drive. We're collecting products at all 6 of our Howard County Library System branches. Thank you so much to our partnership with the library. And we're providing any products that come in on a monthly basis to our partners at Community Action Council and Columbia Community Care. And we also have a goal to raise an additional $2,000 this year to purchase products that will go to our partners. If you're interested in that, we hope you'll get engaged either by providing products or providing funding to be able to get those products. You can learn more on our website. You heard about our 20 years, 20 stories. Another opportunity, again, to lift the work that's happening, lift the voices of the people doing the work and people who have been impacted by philanthropy in our community. We hope you'll take a look. The first 2 stories are up right now on our website, and we will publish 2 stories a month through December to get to 20 stories about that work that we all have been doing collectively for the last 20 years. Again, I mentioned our Giving Our Stories. We hope that you will read about all of the inspiring philanthropists in our community, and we hope that you will nominate others or yourselves to be included. We hope you'll follow us also on social media. We have a very robust and active presence on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find information on a regular basis about all of the things that we have going on. And lastly, we hope that you will take a look at the state of women and girls in Howard County. It's an incredibly important piece for us on our 20th anniversary, and we hope for the community as well. We will continue to update data on a regular basis as it becomes available. And we also invite the community, all of you, to provide us with any data that we may not have seen, may not have had access to, or what have you. We want this to be not only a resource for us, for our grant making, but also a community resource for others. And so please take a look at it. Let us know what you think. And, all of what we're doing, all of what you've heard tonight, all of what I've just mentioned, ways that you can get involved, all of this is happening because of you. Not only are we making things happen together, but we're acknowledging and celebrating our collective efforts together on our 20th anniversary. So take a quick look here and listen to what the community has to say.
To the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County, thank you for all you do, and happy anniversary.
Happy 20th birthday to the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County.
Happy birthday.
Happy 20th anniversary to the Giving Circle.
WGC has made a huge difference in my family. I was very fortunate to be at the first meeting in February 2002, and I am now, 20 years later, deeply honored to be the chair of the advisory board.
Thank you to the founders who had the vision 20 years ago.
I'm so honored to have been an original founder and a past chair, and now our first executive director. And I can't thank every single one of you enough for the role that you've played the last 20 years.
The Women's Giving Circle has a history of supporting girls and partner organizations.
I love working with such a great group of women to make change in our community.
In the past 20 years, the Women's Giving Circle has increased the philanthropy of women in Howard County and has supported various initiatives that have already and will in the future make life better for girls and other women.
To leadership training for young women.
To serve with an organization that levels the playing field for women all over the county.
The collaborative approach to managing a giving circle and the commitment to diversity that they've always embodied.
Your vision and your commitment to Howard County.
I'm honored and humbled to be an advisory board member, a donor, and a volunteer.
I'm a proud member of the Women's Giving Circle Advisory Board.
And a volunteer in support of this organization that means so much to me.
Women in our community who are giving back financially, in their time, and in their with their talents.
Inclusive and diverse.
Represents the circle of strength.
All of the wonderful work that the Women's Giving Circle is doing in Howard County.
Your inspiration with other giving circles.
You inspire us all to make a bigger impact.
Really focus on making sure that we're developing that next gen of women leaders in our community.
For so long, so many incredible women have been involved and created the organization that it is today, and I am just honored to be friends and family with many of these women.
What I love most about the Women's Giving Circle is the warmth and generosity of all the women involved in this organization.
The power of women coming together for collective good.
That we're able to do so much more beyond what we can do alone.
This organization
has been of invaluable service.
It's the commitment to meeting women and girls where they are, no matter who they are.
What I appreciate most about the Women's Giving Circle is their inclusivity, their ability to see people in the community and include them in a way that showcases their skills and talents.
Just such a pleasure to see what we can do when we all work together. Congrats on 20.
It's truly been a blessing to be involved in the Giving Circle for this many years and to see how far we've come.
And I'm really excited also that I can support the important and amazing work that everyone is doing there.
Happy birthday, Golden Gray Circle!
Which is funded by the Women's Giving Circle. During this experience, I learned so much about entrepreneurship and got real hands-on experience with running a business.
The Women's Giving Circle has given me a lot over the past couple of years by supporting the JA Rising Women program.
What I love most about the Women's Giving Circle is the space that it provided for me and other girls in the county.
Your impact goes way beyond your age.
I wish the Women's Giving Circle 20 more wonderful years. I have loved being associated with it.
Those women, those children that we help every day, that's made possible because of you.
And I look forward to watching you grow and continue to serve women and girls and families across Howard County.
We know that anytime that we need support, Women's Giving Circle is always ready and waiting to help us out.
On 20 years of doing good work in Howard County.
Thank you for all that you do for the women of Howard County.
Happy 20th anniversary to the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. And thank you so much for everything that you do for all of us.
Thank you, Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. Congratulations on your 20th anniversary.
Thank you, Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. Happy 20th anniversary.
On the next 20.
We can't wait for your next trip around the sun.
Happy 20th Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. Here's to 20 more, and thank you for all that you do for women and girls in Howard County. Let's celebrate.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. My heart is so full. I'm afraid I may get emotional, but thank you. I mean, it's just everyone who contributed to that. It's been an amazing evening. Thank you for all the anniversary wishes, and look at what we've done collectively together. So I want to give thank you to many people here. First of all, Buffy, thank you so much. We would not be where we are without you. I will say that publicly for the whole world to know, and it's absolutely true. Thank you, thank you. Jeannie, what a tremendous discussion tonight that you had with us. Thank you for your incredibly important work, and amazing, as I would add, for the field and for sharing it with us tonight. Thank you. Jennifer, Candace, and Sabina, thank you for your wonderful panel conversation on the state of women and girls in Howard County. Thank you to Barbara Lawson, Jean Moon, the Horizon Foundation, United Way of Central Maryland, the Community Foundation, and all of our funders and partners supporting the state of women and girls in Howard County. And to our wonderful advisory board, thank you for all that you do. I'm so fortunate to work with you as we celebrate 20 years of impact. And I want to give a definite shout out to the committee chairs, because there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes, and we really appreciate all that you do. To our 20th anniversary committee, which includes members throughout our 20 years, thank you for supporting this important year. To our founders, I hope we have done you proud. Thank you for your vision and your efforts. Look at what you have done for our community. And to all the past WGC advisory board members and chairs, look at what you've created. It's amazing. And to our sponsors, it takes a special person, company, or organization to invest in the WGC and thus invest in women and girls. Thank you. We invite all of you to sponsor our 20th anniversary year. And to our valuable nonprofit partners, thank you for the incredibly important work that you do. We are honored to partner with you and support you. And to our partners at the Community Foundation of Howard County, and especially former WGC Advisory Board member Dee Athey and Dan Flynn, who helped produce our event tonight. And again, thank you to County Executive Ball. Thank you for the partnership, your kind words, and your proclamation. And finally, to all of our donors, our members, a giving circle means that we're all in this together. It is the power of collective giving. Thanks to everyone who has given any amount to the WGC in the past 20 years. We are here because of you. Thank you. Congratulations, WGC, all of us, on our first 20 years. May the next 20 be even better. We look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you again for sharing your